Always love it when I can be in the new podcast studio here, my new experiment in broadcasting. And I'm trying to bring together the elements of news with a Pentecostal perspective, which means that even though there's something going on which looks negative, God is up to something. And I've got to find what that something is, because that's where the kingdom of God is becoming manifest. So welcome to today's Lance Wallnau Show podcast. And by the way, if you want to be able to catch these, because I can only do a little sample right now of summary of what's actually on the podcast. Here, it's lancewallnau.com/podcast. Here on Facebook, here on Instagram, here on Rumble, here on YouTube. What I try to do is a summary of it, because, I got to be so careful what I say. I've been placed in the Google gulag over there on YouTube. I'm just, what's happening in the tech world is ominous, because we're finding our voices being increasingly suppressed. And then people are picking and choosing what they talk about, because, you can't speak openly, it seems, which is kind of a weird reversal, isn't it? Because it's the gender pronoun crowd is forcing you to use language they want, but you're not allowed to use language you want. And that's a real problem. So in today's podcast, what we covered is how to find the breakthrough and the prosperity that God has for you in the midst of a shaking situation. So America right now is in this place where it's kind of like, mixed feelings, isn't it? When people are watching the Biden regime and the government, and it looks as though everything that they're doing is just falling apart. And so in one sense, you're saying, well, that's good. But in another sense, you got to recognize you're on board their ship. And so the more screwed up they are with what they're doing, the more consequences come to you. It's kind of a very difficult situation. So the only solution to that is you have to be able to see the breakdown of what's going on from heaven's perspective, so that you can navigate through the storm. And that's basically what I wanted to talk about today, is the whistleblower scene that's going on in Washington, how the media and the intelligence community are working to manipulate, like psyops, psychological operations, manipulate the American mind so that greater power is being given to government to be able to monitor speech, especially conservative and Republican speech, because that's against the regime. And all this is going to backfire, because the nature of America, the DNA of America is rebellious against the tyranny of unright authority. This is what happened with the Great Awakenings. George Whitefield and the Great Awakener preachers actually put into America a kind of a populist contempt for the pretentiousness of people in power, because the high church rejected Whitefield. But Whitefield was such a phenomenon that the crowds, 20,000 strong or 30,000, in Philadelphia, without a PA system, mind you. And he preached at this barrel chest, and he preached, and it was so powerful that, Benjamin Franklin himself listened to him on a couple of occasions and actually tried to talk Whitefield into starting a city with him. He literally wanted to create a Mount Zion city where Franklin would do the civic order and Whitefield could do the spiritual. And he actually was, the dream was create a model city. But Whitefield didn't do it. The point is, Whitefield put in the American DNA with the Great Awakening this feeling that the common man isn't less than the ruling class. And when King George and the Brits tried to assert ruling class privileges, it just tweaked that Great Awakening DNA in America, and it helped to feed the revolutionary response, which is heck no. And that's what's coming back into America, because apart from the coastlands, which are conspicuously blue-blooded elites in the Washington, New York, Manhattan corridor over there, and the L.A., San Francisco corridor on the West Coast going up into Seattle, the middle America, the large part of America that's red, actually it's the populist base. And we're seeing a massive pushback happen right now. Today's podcast covers the details of what is really taking place in the psyops warfare against the middle of America, and how the middle of America is pushing back on it. And I bring it down to the story of the Apostle Paul, which is so important to me, in that how he handled being prisoner on board a ship going in the wrong direction, and how he overruled the wrong direction and added a chapter to his life, which was the most prosperous expansion of his ministry probably that he had ever seen. And it all came out because the devil tried to kill him. The devil tried to sink his ship. The devil tried to block him from fulfilling his destiny. And Paul's perseverance in prayer brought him to the point where there was a reversal. And that's the American story. That's in the Bible. I want you to be able to see it today. But I'm out of time right now. Go over to thelancewallnut.com/podcast. And if you want to see this version on the Ditto Cam, you go to liftable.tv/Lance. Liftable.tv/Lance. I'm looking for you there. Love the Ditto Cam and love hanging out with you. I'll be seeing you shortly.